So we're finally here. It's time to see how this whiny little bitch turns into this bad motherfucker right here. Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. We follow the continued adventures of Obi-Wan and Anakin in the Clone Wars, and the eventual fall of the Republic, and of course, the turn to the dark side for Anakin Skywalker. Revenge of the Sith is definitely the best of the three in the prequel series. It ain't perfect by any means, but it is definitely a step above the previous two. The story this time around is much more engaging and entertaining. There's a lot less of the boring stuff in this one. This one rolls at a much faster clip and is extremely lean. It's rare in this movie that there's a lull and there's not something big going on. The movie does a really good job of tying up everything nicely from the previous two films. There's not much, if anything, that they leave to speculation at the end of this movie. The performances this time around are much better than they were in the previous two. Still not up to the level of the original trilogy, but they are leaps and bounds better than the previous two. Everyone seems a lot more comfortable with their characters this time around, and that camp factor is much more on point. Even Hayden Christensen is better this time around. All that creeper psycho stuff he had going on in episode 2 has been replaced by him just being a badass. For the most part. He's still got some whiny bitch parts, but for the most part, he's a badass in this movie. While the performances this time are a lot better, as with the previous two movies, the dialogue sometimes does leave something to be desired. We tend to blame the actors for bad performances sometimes, but some of the dialogue in this movie, I really don't know how you could perform it in a good way. It's overall better in this one for sure, but there are still some of those real weird, awkward dialogue moments in this movie. Like when Jimmy Smits gets to the Jedi Temple when the big revolt's happening, and he busts out his car and he's all like, "What the fuck's going on here, man?" And the clone troopers all like, "Nothing to see here, man. It's time for you to go." And Jimmy Smits goes from being all hyped to, "And so it is." Yeah, and there's like this really long pause after he says this real awkward, stilted dialogue. Shit like that is still in this movie. But the rest of the movie is so much better and so exciting and a good time to watch that you're able to look over it a lot more in this one. Ewan McGregor seems like he is having an absolute blast while making this movie. He totally hits his Obi-Wan stride in episode 3. His performance out of everyone here is the most Star Wars-y of the bunch. The guy just seems like he is having a blast here at the end of the trilogy. Like I said, the story in episode 3 is much better and more engaging this time. It's a lot more exciting, it's a lot more Star Wars than we've gotten in the previous two movies. It does a really good job of explaining the backstory of some things that we already know of and have only heard about in the original trilogy. It never seems gimmicky or contrived either. It seems like there really was a story here to tell, and that's what he did. The opening about 30 minutes of this movie is so fucking awesome. It's got pretty much everything you want in a Star Wars movie action-wise crammed into this first 30 minutes of the movie, and it is glorious. The final lightsaber battle between Obi-Wan and Anakin is also awesome as hell as well. And regardless of how you felt about the previous two movies, due to the buildup of those movies, the final lightsaber duel between these two best friends has legitimate emotional stakes, and it is awesome. While I could nitpick the movie for a few little things here or there, my only real big issue with it is Anakin's turn to the dark side. I think they actually handled the first half of it really well. It's a very gradual thing that we get to experience, and it seems very natural at first. There's lots of little seeds and little things that happen to him throughout the first part of the story that lead him down this dark path. And that's all going well, but then when he finally does turn, it's extremely abrupt. I mean, I get why the movie is saying that it happened, and I don't really have a problem so much with what he did to eventually turn to the dark side. I get why that happened. They make that very clear, and I'm cool with that. But right after he does this thing, he just goes full-on dark side out of nowhere. It's like he started here, and he needed to be here for the dark side. And while we're having a gradual progression, about right here in the middle of the movie, it just said, no, we need to get there faster. It just seemed really abrupt all of a sudden. This one thing happens, and it really didn't take much for him to just go straight to the dark side. It was a pity that they didn't continue that gradual progression to make it seem a little bit more natural. But oh well, he turns to the dark side, and man, does he go dark. Well, that's kind of fucked up. It is pretty awesome. Once we get to Anakin's dark side part of the movie, it's easy to see why the movie did earn Star Wars' first PG-13 rating, which I think every Star Wars after this one has been rated PG-13 as well. I think. I'm sure somebody will correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. The special effects this time around are great. While episode 1 really doesn't hold up as much as it used to, and episode 2 did do a much better job with that, episode 3 still looks fantastic till this day. The aforementioned first 30 minutes of the movie is full of special effects, and they all look fantastic. There's not really anything I can point at that just stands out as a bad effect in this movie. Regardless of what you think of this movie and the prequels as a whole, you cannot deny that the special effects in episode 3 are fantastic and hold up great till this day. Guys, episode 3 is the prequel that we were waiting for since episode 1. It's not quite up to the standard of the original trilogy, but it is a fantastic ride and just a joy to watch from beginning to end. It absolutely retains that Star Wars magic, but its execution and performances definitely get a little bit closer to its roots as well. And while it is a bit sad that it took 3 movies to get back to a solid Star Wars film, it is still the best of the bunch and a really fun film and absolutely worth a buy. This is a great Star Wars film that any Star Wars fan should have in their collection. I mean, who am I kidding? Really, any Star Wars fan is going to have them all in their collection. But when it comes to the prequels, this is the one out of all of them that we all look forward to watching. So there it is, guys, my review of Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Finally, they got the title right, too. If you enjoyed and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you liked what I had to say, give me a thumbs up. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.
What's going on here? There's been a rebellion, sir. I'm sorry, sir. It's time for you to leave.
And so it is.
The way the Emperor gets his deformity in this movie is just pretty dumb. I mean, just stop, and it wouldn't have happened. I mean, I guess I get why, but it doesn't change the fact that it came off as kind of dumb. But oh well, I'm not gonna nitpick because the rest of the movie, pretty fucking cool.